Okay, good morning. Good morning, class.
Morning,
Good morning.
sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning,
Yeah,
sir.
on
Good morning,
Tuesday
sir.
we started looking at what we call nature of equitable and equitable interest of notice, and then we said that equitable interests are those interests over property which were recognized and enforced by the court of chancery, but they were not valid at common law. Then also says that this right, this interest may be divided into two classification. Number one of these interests are those interests modeled on common law rights. Those interests modeled on common law rights. These are rights. I said to you that equity follows the law. Equity is just there to complement the principle of common law. So therefore, there are certain rights which are equitable interests that model on common law principle. Equity follow law and equity complement common law. It's not a different legal system. Rather, there must be law before you have equity. So there are instances where we have equitable interest that's modeled on common law principle. Okay. Now, the second one are those that were invented by equity independently. These are the ones that were invented by equity independent of that common law principle. In the first category, I try to illustrate by giving us what is beneficial interest in trust. And I said, under the common law, the interests of the beneficiary were not catered for. Okay, because the moment a trust is created, a legal interest in respect of that particular trust property becomes vested on the trustee. He step into the shoe of the landowner. It's as good as being the landowner or the property owner, which is subject to trust. And I said, at common law, the rights of the beneficiary were not protected. He had no interest at all. So where at common law, trustee had a legal interest, beneficiary uh, had nothing. Okay, and I said, just like the first master said, equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. In case the trust property is being mismanaged, what happened to the beneficiary? Beneficiary at common law had no remedy. There was nothing they could do at common law. But equity has been able to invent what we call equitable interest. Okay, equitable interest. I said to you that for you to be able to go to court to challenge any party, you must have an interest. At common law, where a trust is created, beneficiary had no interest, so they can't go to court against a trustee who mismanaged the property or trust property, as the case may be. But now it's possible for the beneficiary to proceed against the trustee who probably mismanages the property, the trust property, because equities have been able to develop an equitable interest, which they model on the doctrine of estate. And I was trying to explain that doctrine of estate to you on Tuesday. They modeled it on common law rights of doctrine of estate. And I tried to let you know that there are three types of estate in England, which we also imported in Nigeria before the enactment of Land Use Act. First one is fee simple estate. And I said to you, fee simple estate is an estate of inheritance. It applies to heir generally. Okay, to Ade and his heir will give you a fee simple. In fact, before the Land Use Act, if you see land purchase agreement or land agreement, interest is being transferred to whoever purchases that particular piece of land as a fee simple estate. Okay, and I say that's the highest interest anyone can possess in land. The second one is fee tail, and I say fee tail is only restricted to a linear descendant or ascendant. It's not of general application to all the family. Okay, you restrict it to a particular heir, as the case may be. You have to restrict it to a particular heir, as the case may be. And I give an example. You can say to Ade and his male tail, to Ade and his male tail. Okay, meaning that as long as Ade continue to have male within the family, the duration of that particular piece of land is being measured, okay, by having male within the family. Okay, that is what I said. And I said there are instances whereby you can buy it, BARRING. You can actually buy, convert your fee tail into a fee simple estate, okay? They call it barren. And I say you are going to do it much better under the doctrine of estate when you have been taught. Now, having said that, there's this third category is what we call life estate. And I said life estate is an estate where the life of the holder is being used to measure the duration that it possesses on that particular piece of land, okay? If I say to Ade for life, the duration of the period that they will use that land is restricted to the time and its life. Okay, if Ade die today, the land will refer back to the queen. That was before the enactment of land use act. Everything now, I said to you that it's not relevant to us again, Nigeria, because we now are what we call statutory occupancy. Now, if somebody want to create, how does equity now be able to use the doctrine of estate in order to now give an equitable interest to a beneficiary in a trust? And I try to give an illustration. I say, if Mr. D, okay, Mr. D gives property to T in trust for ABC, okay, in trust for ABC. So Mr. D is the owner of that particular property, and he gave the property to ABC, okay, to hold in trust. He gave it to Mr. T to hold in trust. I said, if I to be at common law, ABC had no interest. They don't have any interest at all because their rights were not recognized as common law. Okay, in order to be able to make Mr. ABC to be able to sue Mr. T, Equity has developed the common law principle of estate, and in drafting that will, they will carve in such a way that an interest becomes vested on each of these beneficiaries. Okay, so and that was what I said. I said if D gives a property to T for trust, okay, it's going to limit in the life of A. So it's going to be a property to T in trust for A for life. Okay, that means limited for A for life. Then remainder to B in T, and the remainder to C in fee simple. And I said with that creation, A, B, and C now have what we call equitable interest. Okay, while the T still continue to hold a legal interest. I said to you, the purpose of that is when you look at old wills, old drafting, old document, land document. That's likely what you are going to see there. People try to give interest on beneficiaries so that they can also be able to sue. If they don't give, if interest is not vested on them, it will become practically impossible for them to sue. And that is what I just want you to understand. I said to you that what I just want you to understand there, because you are still going to do co-ownership, is the fact that an interest has now become vested on the beneficiary. So ABC, A is enjoying for life, B is enjoying entail, and C is enjoying fee simple. So meaning that they now have interest created for them, which we now refer to as an equitable interest. The second category are those that were not available at common law, okay, but they were primarily equitable creation. They were created by equity, okay, because common law will actually declare them invalid for lack of formality, but equity will still embrace them because equity look at that as done, which ought to be done. So without any formality, that will still be deemed to be proper. One of those things we look at: mortgage or equity of redemption, restrictive covenant, vendors equitable lien. These are examples of what we are going to be seeing later. Then estate contract, equitable mortgage that charges. These are things we are going to be looking at. Miss Priscilla Momo, you are disturbing the class. Priscilla Momo, your speaker is muted. You are disturbing class. Priscilla Momo. Now, having said that, so let's begin to look at equitable interest and legal interest. Okay, the general principle of law is that legal interest. Now, what is the relationship between equitable interest and legal interest? Okay, or legal estate, as the case may be. Now, the general principle of law is very clear. A legal estate or legal interest is valid against the whole world. Okay, it has more it has superiority over any other interest created. That's the meaning. Okay, so a legal interest, anyone that's an holder of a legal estate in land or legal interest in land is more powerful than any other interest. Okay, that is what we need to know. A legal estate in property is enforceable against the whole world. Okay, whereas an equitable interest in property is enforceable against a purchaser for value. So there's a limitation. If there's a competing interest, I said that to you, where there's equal equity, the law prevails. Okay. Now, where there's a competing legal interest, competing interest between legal interest and equitable interest, I said to you that a legal interest will take priority. Now, why is a legal interest more powerful? Because a legal interest is going to be registered against the whole world. And anyone that wants to conduct a search is likely going to see the fact that the property is encumbered. Okay? I said to you, every formal creation of document that affects land is a legal interest. Informal creation of document that affect land is an equitable interest. You need to get that down. So if I'm an holder of a certificate of occupancy granted by Lagos state government and I registered that particular land, if you search anywhere, you might be in London, you might be in US, all I need to give you is just the number on the CFO. If you conduct your search, you are going to see my name there as the holder. So it's more or less constituting a notice to the whole world. You have every opportunity to search and conduct the search when a document has a legal interest or legal estate. That is not possible if a document is an equitable interest. You cannot search. You can only find out from the neighbor, from whoever is occupying that particular piece of land, or whatever information you derive from the seller. Okay? But the principle has always been that an holder of a legal interest in land is superior, okay, and then is enforceable against the whole world. An holder of an equitable interest can only enforce it against the purchaser or the seller, who probably after he discovered the fact that the land is not free. Okay, so and I also said to you that the only reason why legal interest will be postponed is where the holder of a legal interest is not a bona fide purchaser of value without notice of the existence of the earlier equity. Okay, if you notice or you receive notice or you are aware, okay, of the fact that the land is not free, but because you have more money than the earlier purchaser, and you now quickly went and go and perfect the document, you are an holder of a legal interest, but you are not a bona fide purchaser of value because you had notice of the fact that that particular piece of land has been encumbered by by earlier equitable interest created. Okay. Now, having said that, let's look at particular equitable interest. What are the particular equitable interests that we need to look at? Now, we've looked at equitable interest as related to trust. I think that's quite, you now understand that. We said that equity now develop equitable interest using the doctrine of estate. That's clear. So let's look at some of this. What is estate contract? Because these are things we mentioned. What is estate contract? Now, this is an agreement for sale of land. We call it contract of sale of land. Okay, that is estate contract. Now, where vendors or probably lessor of a property breach an agreement where parties agree to sell land to each other, that's what we are saying. They can enter into what they call contract of sale of land, meaning that they are still negotiating. Okay, there's an offer, there's an acceptance, and somebody want to buy a land of 100 million naira, and they say, okay, let us enter into a contract of sale of land. Okay, out of 100 million, I'm going to give you 60 million. Why I continue to investigate your title? Okay, people do that when which amount of money is involved. If you do conveyance in year 5, you understand better. But what we are talking about is the fact that people enter into a contract of sale of land, and the moment you enter into a contract of sale of land, if you are notwithstanding the fact that it's not yet complete, or you have not concluded the transaction, automatically, the moment you enter, there's an offer, acceptance, and you furnish consideration in a contract of sale of land, the buyer has acquired what we call an equitable interest in that property. Okay, it has acquired an equitable interest in that property. Get this thing right. I want to buy a piece of land from you, and we enter into a contract of sale of land. Okay, a contract of sale of land is quite different for deed of assignment. What is a contract of sale of land? We are still negotiating. I said to you, it's not completion stage yet. This is a land. I'm interested in buying a land from you, and you say the land is 100 million naira, and I said, okay, I'm interested. Pending the time we conclude this transaction, this is 60 million naira, and we prepare an agreement called contract of sale of land. Okay, that is what they call estate contract. At the moment we sign that contract of sale of land, equitable interest has been automatically created in favor of the purchaser. Okay, why the legal interest still continue to be held by the buyer, okay? But the right of, by the seller rather. The right of the seller is just to hold on to the property, not to sell it to a third party, because an equitable interest has been created in favor of the buyer, okay? So that is one aspect of it. Now, the problem with this has to do with the fact that in case having collected money from me, having collected 60 million naira from me, and having signed a contract of sale of land from me, you suddenly find another buyer who is willing to pay 150 million naira, okay? You now decided not to, you want to rescind the contract. You want to cancel the the contract. Now, you can't do that because of the fact that as at the time you collected my first money, there's a contract and then there's an equitable interest being passed to me, okay? So you can no longer sell that particular property to a third party, okay? That is what the court is saying in Ogunbambi against Aboaba, when the court castigated a lot of family. If you look at Ogunbambi against Aboaba, that's in there, you see where courts will say that a lot of family are fond of selling the same land to different individuals. In fact, the court went ahead to say that buying a piece of land from a lot of families is buying a lawsuit. Okay? If you buy a land from a lot of family of Lagos, you are buying a lawsuit because as you are settling down on that particular property, another person is coming to tell you that he purchased the same land. So when you have that kind of thing, under the common law, what is your remedy? The common law, if somebody wants to rescind a contract of this nature, is now to say that you are going to be compensated in form of damages. Okay? That's the only remedy at common law. Damages. Notwithstanding the fact what you have gone through, common law will just, okay, go and compensate you for breach of contract. And that's the end. But equity will not do that because an equitable interest has been created the moment we agree that we are going to buy, you are going to sell to me. And as such, I should be able to sue you and order for sue you for damages, for breach of contract, and at the same time, I should be able to also compare you in equity by specific performance, not to rescind the contract. So that is available remedy in equity. Number one is to sue for damages, for breach of contract, and then I can also compare you in equity because an equitable interest has become vested on me the moment we enter into a contract of sale of land. Okay. Now, I don't know whether I'm communicating. Am I communicating? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You are you
Sorry,
on?
sir, please, could you repeat the last thing you said, sir?
Is that what?
Could you repeat the last thing you just mentioned about I didn't get what you were saying. Sorry, sir.
About which one? I didn't know which one you want me. I've said so many things today.
Okay, before you mentioned the case of Ogunbambi and Aboab.
I was talking about the fact that yes, where party agreed to sell land. Let's say A have agreed to sell land to Mr. B, okay, and then suddenly Mr. A now decided to convey the same land to Mr. C. If you want to talk about their interest, because of the false equitable interest you created, Mr. A can no longer say to Mr. C, Mr. C is not going to be a bona fide purchaser of value if he had notice of the fact that the land had been sold to Mr. B. That's one aspect. Now, another thing was that when there's a breach of contract or sale of land, parties are entitled to sue at common law, okay? And I said the only remedy available at common law is compensation, damages for breach of contract. But equity will not support that because of the fact that the moment you enter into a contract of sale of land, party become bound, okay? An equitable interest has been automatically created in favor of the buyer. So you can't sell to a third party. If you sell to a third party, I will go to court against you, not only to sue you for damages for breach of contract, I will also sue you for specific performance so that the court can compare you in equity to not to rescind the contract and to complete the transaction. That's what I said. And I said this is common in the sense that you have ABC, okay, where you have A is the owner of the land, and A had initially sold the land to Mr. B, and in under a contract of sale of land, and then Mr. C come to Mr. A, offer Mr. A more money, and Mr. A is trying to sell the land to Mr. C, and then the question of priority will come in. Mr. C is not going to be a bona fide purchaser for value even when he perfect the transaction because he received notice of Mr. B earlier equity. That's what I said. And I said it's common with, and I now give you the case of Ogunbambi against Aboaba, where I said that, the scenario that I just painted by Mr. ABC was just, the same thing like what happened in that case. And the courts were able to do by castigating the Oloto family, that saying that Oloto family are fond of selling the same piece of land to different individuals, and that buying a land from Oloto family is like buying a lawsuit, because as you are settling down to work, another person is coming to tell you that he purchased that particular piece of land. These are what I said, okay? And I was asking you whether you are following. That is what and I talk about. Having said all that, I think you now understand what I said. Did you understand? Hello? Hello? Somebody
Yes,
asked
sir.
me.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay, thank
sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
somebody.
Sorry.
Let me move on before you start asking questions. We'll not move. Who's the person asking question again? Yes, who's the person?
Yes, sir.
Somebody raise up with mine.
Sir, it's not a
Yes.
question, sir. So I wanted to ask that can you help us slow down a bit, because I'm trying to write and I think I need to beat faster.
I'm faster.
Yes, sir. We're trying
Eh,
to
I
also
didn't know that.
take down some notes too.
Okay, you need to catch fast also, because lawyer think faster too. Okay, you don't do
All right,
the yeah. Okay, you need to be fast. So where did you miss anything at all?
Not at all, sir.
Everything I've said is what I've said when I was teaching maxims. There's nothing new in what I've said so far. Except when I was talking, there was nothing I've said today that I've not said before. It's okay. Let me talk slowly like old professor then. Okay? Maybe that will help you. I was talking about estate contracts, and I'll be able to explain what it meant and everything. Now, let's get to another topic, subtopic, which is priority and doctrine of bona fide purchaser of value without notice. Okay? I said to you when you are talking about priority of interest, how do you prioritize who take first when you are talking about competing interests? I've been able to establish the fact that an holder of a legal estate in land, okay, take precedent over and above any other subsequent interest, provided he is a bona fide purchaser of value without notice. Okay, is a bona fide purchaser of value without notice. Okay, now we'll be able to establish what is this notice, which we are going to see later. I said to you there are 3 types of notices. We have 3 types. Number 1 is what we call actual notice. Actual notice is a kind of notice that actually come to you. Okay, you have direct information, direct knowledge of the fact that the land is not free. Okay, you see people on it, or you even heard, oh, you just heard that this man is about, you've been eyeing a particular piece of land, you are also interested in buying that particular piece of land, and suddenly you find out that people have started putting sand on that particular piece of land. Okay, and you make inquiry, and they say that the landowner had sold to Mr. B, and you decided to go to Mr. A by saying that, landowner, but this land, I've told you, if you want to sell, let me know. And Mr. A, who is the landowner, now said to you that he had sold the land to Mr. B for 100 million naira. And you now come back to Mr. A, who's the landowner, by telling Mr. A that, Mr. A, I'm ready to offer you 150 million. And Mr. A was happy. And Mr. A believed that he will make more money. So he decided to sell the land to Mr. C. Okay? Now, Mr. C had what we call actual notice. He's aware of the fact that the land has been sold. That's what we call actual notice. That's number 1. Another example of actual notice is where you see somebody developing a land, or somebody put a signpost. They just write it there. This land is not for sale. Beware of 419. Okay, a kind of cabinet emptor. Let the buyer be aware. They put all that kind of thing there. It's also showing the fact that the land is not free. Or you see a features on the land like survey plan. There's normally what we call pillars. You saw pillars on the land. You saw any feature that showed that the land is not a virgin land, it's not free, and you still went ahead to buy it. That's what we call actual grant. Okay, or probably the man actually informed you by himself by saying that, well, I've sold the land yesterday, he did not come. I said, go and return his money. It's common in land transaction. Return his money. Tell them that you are not selling again. Tell them that the family has resolved that family should not sell that land. It's all life. Now you now decided to sell it to a second party. Now they won't be deemed to be a bona fide purchaser of value, having parted under a contract of sale of contract. Okay, that's what we are trying to explain to you. Now The bona fide interest has to do with priority of interest, just like we said. And that's what we call temporal order rule. There's priority, and we call it temporal order rule. You can read the case of Ogunbambi against Abuaba again. Ogunbambi against Abuaba will actually give you a clear picture of what we are talking about when we talk about bona fide purchaser for value without notice. Okay, these are people that receive direct notice of the fact that the land is encumbered. Okay, the land is not free, and you still went ahead to pay for it, or probably you still negotiate to purchase, notwithstanding the fact that you have been informed about the fact that an interest has been created. Okay, now having said that, there's a temporal order rule, and that's what we call quae paro est tempore, potio est jure. Okay, who is first in time is stronger in law. That's quae paro est tempore, potio est jure. Okay, who is first in time, that's the meaning. Who is first in time is stronger in law. Okay, so whoever is first in time is stronger in law. That is first. The meaning of quae paro est tempore, potio est jure. Okay, now it's talking about competing legal interests. We are not talking about where you have two competing interests, L plus L. I said to you, L, that is legal interest plus legal interest, is going to be equal to legal interest raised to power 1. That is interest that was first created. It is possible. Interest in property does not necessarily mean that the property is being sold. Get it right. It's not necessarily because the property is being sold. There could be multiple of a legal interest you can create over a property. Somebody can create a mortgage, a legal mortgage. Okay, when you create a legal mortgage, it's not that the mortgagee, the bank, will come and take over the property. No, they won't come and take over the property and be sleeping there. They will only exercise the right of their right of sale or taking possession when you are in default. What I'm saying is that there are many properties that you are seeing on the street that they are mortgaged, but the owner is still living there. Okay, because once a mortgage is created, what is given to the mortgagee is just the proprietary interest. It's only the proprietary interest that go to the bank. Okay, they have opportunity to access the property when you are in default. Okay, so there could be instances where a legal mortgage has been created over a particular property and other people don't know. Okay, because there's no way you will know if another interest was. So if a mortgagor creates a legal mortgage over his property, that does not prevent him from creating another interest like a lease. Okay, because if he's no longer living the property or he's not even using the property, he can lease the property out. Okay, if the property is leased for 10 years, then it can also be registered. That lease can also be registered. So that is a situation whereby you can have two legal interests. So you may not be able to have legal interest when you have two assignments or when you have a two CFO. It might not be possible on the same land, except out of fraudulent practice. Okay, it is actually very impossible for you to have CFO in respect of the same land, except there's a fraud. Okay, because if you obtain a false CFO today, it is going to be registered, and if it's registered, it constitutes notice to you, because by the time you search or you conduct your investigation over the land, you will see the encumbrances that this land is not free. An interest has been created. Okay, that is the essence of legal interest. It protects the buyer. It's more secure. Now, let's go back to two legal mortgage. Two legal interests being created. One is legal mortgage. The other one is legal lease. The legal lease is just for 10 years. Whereas the man is paying back the loan. Maybe he was even paying back the loan through the money he collected from the legal lease. Let's say that he's now in default. He has failed to pay the lease. He has failed to pay the bank, and the bank now wants to exercise their right of sale over the property. And there's somebody there who is a lessee, who is still serving. Maybe he just spent like almost 3-4 years out of his 10 years. So you now have two competing interests. Okay, you have two competing interests. So the question now is about the fact that what will happen? Who will take priority? So you now have a situation whereby a lessee is still on the property and he has more than 8 years to spend because the man just created a legal lease for him. And you have a legal mortgage because this man failed to pay the bank. So bank wants to sell. If bank wants to sell the property, bank will take priority because their first illegal interest was first to be created. That is what we are saying. Who is first time? Who is first in time is stronger in law. Whoever interest is created. So the interest that was created was legal mortgage. So the legal mortgage is stronger in law than the legal lease because that was subsequently created. That's what we're saying. There could also be other multiple legal interests created over a particular property, which does not totally extinguish the right of the other party. Get it right. It's only when you do an assignment of a property, or when you do a complete assignment of a property, that's only when it extinguishes the right of the holder. Okay? If I'm an holder of a right of occupancy, yes. If I decided to assign to you and we obtain governor consent based on Section 22 of Land Use Act, it has extinguishes my right over that particular property. I can no longer I don't have any interest over the property. So we are not talking about such equitable, legal interest. We are talking about legal interest that though you created one, you are still exercising your right over that particular property. Okay, that is what we are saying. And I've given you an example of a legal lease and a legal mortgage. Okay, I hope that is clear. Are you people following? Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
And it's perfectly understood. So let's go on.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Your line is breaking. Your line is breaking. Your line is breaking. I can't hear you.
Said please that's why we're talking about assignment.
Your line is breaking. I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
I cannot hear you, but
Yes,
I can
I
hear
can
you
hear you.
now. Okay.
I can hear
Go
you,
on.
sir. I said, can you go over what you said about assignment of property and when the right of a holder will be extinguished? I didn't get that.
I was just trying to let you know there's different. I was telling you about different legal interests that you can create over the same property. You can create multiple interests, legal interests over a property. So it's not about sale, because some of you would think that it's about a sale of land or assignment of an interest in land. And I was trying to give an example. I give an example of legal mortgage. Legal mortgage is where you borrow money temporarily and you release your property as a security. And a legal mortgage was created. Now, and I said to you, when you created a legal mortgage, the bank just have what we call a proprietary interest over the property, not that your right over that property is totally extinguished. You are still the owner of your property. All you are required to do is just to pay back your money. Okay? And the moment you pay your money, your property is free. Now, also when you created a lease, a legal lease over a property for 10 years, yes, the man in favor of whom you created the lease will continue to enjoy that land for 10 years. It doesn't extinguish your right because you have what we call right of reversion. After 10 years, the land refers back to you. Now, the third one is what we call deed of assignment. Deed of assignment is where you accurately assign your interest in the property to another person. Okay? You obtain a C of O, for example, granted by governor, and you want to assign. You are no longer interested in using the land. You want to sell. Let me use alienation now. Alienation means you want to dispose it of. Now, the moment you assign your interest in a land, it has extinguished your right. You don't have anything again over that particular property. You have sold off your right. That's what I said by you extinguish your right. I don't know whether you understand now. Did you understand now?
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we are talking about competing legal interests, and by now you should be able to understand. For some of you that have been looking at past question and do so confused, by now you should be able to pick what we're trying to say, because you see multiple interests being created. And I just mentioned to you that you can have competing legal interests, but whoever is the first interest created in law is stronger in law. That's what we're saying. Who is first in law in time is stronger in law. Whatever interest is created, that's what we call temporal order. Okay, it's recognized both in law and in equity. Reason why we have where there's equal equity, the law prevail. Where we also have where there are where equities are equal, the first in time prevail. That is exactly that. Temporal order as a priority is recognized both at law or at equity. Okay. You can check the case of Adu Kofi against Adje. Adu Kofi against Adje. Adje is ADJE. Okay, you can see where land is being sold at the same time. Somebody bought that particular different to auction. Auction is where maybe a bank is exercising their right to sell, okay, a particular property. So these are the two examples of where you have multiple sale of particular property. Then the first one that was first sold, or the first buyer, would take priority over the subsequent sale. That's what we are talking about. Now, number 2 is competing equitable interest. Competing equitable interest is talking about max number 4, where equities are equal, the first in time prevail. You can also have competing equitable interest, okay, where each of the rival claimants has an equitable interest in the property, provided their equities are equal. So they are meritorious. Their cases are meritorious. Like the same man that bought from Mr. A, also bought Mr. A, then Mr. A sold to Mr. C. So their equities are equal in the sense that both titles are not defective, okay? The problem has to do with the fact that who take priority between both of them. And then just like you have a legal interest, multiple legal interests, you can also have multiple equitable interests. And it doesn't also need to mean sale of land, okay? You can create an equitable mortgage. We're going to see how to create that one very soon. You can create an equitable mortgage. You can create an equitable lease. You can create an equitable easement. These are instances you can create. They are still equitable interest. How do you create equitable mortgage? Equitable mortgage is where you have an informal borrowing of money from the bank without you signing any agreement with them. Okay? People can go to the bank with the original copy of their land document. That is what we call a mere deposit of title deed. We call it a mere deposit of title deed. You can just walk to any bank. In fact, most of these microfinance banks, they create equitable mortgage in favor of people. So they will just tell you, what do you have? I have a house. Okay, I go and inspect the house. Bring the document. And they'll collect the document and give you money without you signing any agreement. That's an equitable mortgage. Okay? And it has no record anywhere aside from the fact that your original paper is with them. Do you know that you can create multiple equitable mortgage? And the bank will not know, because you can still go back, collect your certified true copy of the same document, go to another bank, and you create another one. You go to another bank, create another one, because you can continue to obtain certified true copy of the same document and continue to borrow money, It's only when you don't pay back, all of them will now want to fall back on the same property, and then there will be competition. That's what we're saying. And when there's competition, whoever interest is created first will take priority. It will take priority. That's also quite extempore. Portio ex jure is also applicable to competing equitable interest. When you have E plus E is equal to E raised to power 1. So it's so straightforward, but you can actually have multiple equitable interests being created over the same property. Okay, and they are not outright sale. Some of them are not outright sale. Just like the question somebody asked, it doesn't extinguish the right. You only create an interest over your property. The same property, you can create several equitable mortgage. Okay, because there's no way bank will discover. Because when they can search, they will not see any record of your mortgage anywhere because it's equitable. Okay, now you also give the property to Mr. Ade, 10-year lease, and you did not prepare any lease agreement and you did not register it. It's also an equitable mortgage. Somebody also may not know. You can also carry your house, put billboard. MTN has approached you and they want you to use your space for purpose of erecting their mask, and you also allow them, you took money from them and they put the mask. That mask they put there is an easement right. You have created an equitable easement. Now, you can continue to create all these interests. There won't be problem as long as you are meeting up with your obligation in that interest. The moment you are in default, probably you did not pay one, and then one now want to exercise right of taking over the property. Other will come and say, no, he also borrowed money from us. He also did this for us. That is where you have competing interest. So E plus E will be equal to raised to power 1. Okay. Now, having said all that, there could be what we call modification of this interest. We call it modification of the rule of qua para extempore portio ex jure, meaning that it can be tampered with. this can, I mean, priority can be actually be tampered with. Okay, doesn't mean that because your interest come first, it cannot be tampered with. And I've given you a good example of one of the instances where this will be tampered with, where L plus L raised to power L1 might not be like that, where that can be postponed. And I said that to you as a general principle is where the subsequent interest created is not a bona fide purchaser for value without notice. Okay, if you receive notice of the fact that somebody has created an interest in respect of a property and you still decided to go ahead to create yours, your interest will be postponed. Okay, or probably you are aware. So if the first one, you are the first one to register your document, this is what I'm saying. There are two sales or there are two mortgages. Okay, the first one created a legal mortgage. Okay, and then the second one, the first one that created legal mortgage is here to perfect the legal mortgage, because now automatically you are going to register the same legal mortgage. Maybe out of his negligence or out of the fact that the lawyer they gave it to go and perfect forgot or is sick. He didn't do anything on it. And then another legal mortgage was created again in favor of the another bank. That other bank was smarter. They went to register immediately. Don't forget, the first legal mortgage that was created was not really perfected. Now, if the first people are aware of the fact that Bank A has an interest at equitable mortgage, legal mortgage on that particular property, their interest is going to be postponed, notwithstanding the fact that they have their own legal mortgage register first. Okay, that's what we're saying. So there could be instances where there will be modification to this rule, where there's equal equity, the law prevail, and then where there's equal equity, where you have two equities that the first time prevail, they could actually be tampered with. That's what we're saying. There are instances where that could be tampered with, and one of them is fraud, okay, and negligence. That can tamper with your priority. You need to read the case of Joseph against Anwat, Joseph against Anwat, also the case of Pitcher and Rolling, Rice and Rice. You need to read all those cases. Now, there's what we call fraud, when an interest was fraudulently obtained or out of negligence. Okay, your interest will be postponed, not to subsequent equity. Now, you know the law is that where you have legal and you have equity, the answer is legal. Okay, L plus E will be equal to L. When you have legal interest first plus equitable interest, legal interest will always take priority. That's what we said. Okay, when you also have legal plus legal, the L1 will take precedent. When you have E plus E, E raised to power 1 will also take. But there are instances where a legal interest will be postponed and equitable interest will take priority. One of them is the issue of notice, which is common. But you can also have issue of fraud, okay, where equitable interest will take priority over the other interests, okay, or where there's connivance in creating a legal interest. It's happened in bank. Some of these bankers normally do it. They will create multiple interests, connive with the with whoever want to. Most time they connive to create multiple interests in order to assist a particular buyer. A particular customer. If I have seen where they clone, there's what we call cloning of CFO. Okay, you may not really understand it better. Where the legal mortgage is not even existent at all, the legal document is not in existence, it's forged. You have seen where you see a legal mortgage, you think that the document they used to create that legal mortgage was actually real. But by the time you get to land registry, you discover that it was not there. So these are instances where that will be postponed. If you're able to establish fraud or probably negligence, there was a particular case, which was the case, I think the case of Oliver, where somebody, after having perfected his legal mortgage or so, he negligently put it under his locker and somebody took it. I think another person took it and he used it to borrow money and create a legal mortgage with it. So if you are out of negligence, fraud, notice, this priority might be tampered with. That's what I'm saying. It might be tampered with, notwithstanding the fact that you create an interest, your interest came first. That's what I'm saying. So it can actually be postponed, notwithstanding the fact that your interest came first, and that was out of fraud, out of negligence, out of you receiving notice. These are instances where that could actually be postponed. Okay, let me stop there and wait for question. In case we have question, you can also read the case of Akingbade against Elemosho. Okay, Akingbade against Elemosho, Oliver Hilton, and then Oluwa and Oshunubi. These are instances where, if you read those cases, you understand better. Instances where interest might be postponed, notwithstanding the fact that you have priority or your interest was created. I mentioned notice.
Sir.
I'm coming. I mentioned notice.
Okay.
I mentioned fraud. I mentioned negligence. Yes, what's the question?
I wanted to ask if you could repeat those cases again, sir.
I gave you that. You are not reading that. I gave you this handout. Everybody, you have it. You don't have my notes that I sent to you. Do you have it?
I have it, sir. Yes, it's on the group. So I have it.
You are not reading it. All of them I mentioned are there. I started
sir.
by giving the case of Adjusted and Awards, Pitcher and Rolling.
Yes, Akingbade and Alimosho.
Yes, fire insurance company against WIP, Oliver and Hilton, Akingbade and Alimosho. You have all that now. Oluwa and Oshunubi. It's in my notes that I gave you, and I just suggested that you should go and read them because they will give you more clearer picture about what we're saying. You see where somebody fraudulently created a legal mortgage in order to take priority, okay, or where somebody out of negligence expose his documents to the hand of somebody who steal it, and then that person now perfected another interest. So that could make your interest to be postponed. That's what I was trying to explain. Okay. Now, any question on what I've said so far? You have any question on what I've said so far? Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, please, can you explain the exception of...
I cannot hear you. Speak up. Yes, hello? Hello? I cannot hear you. Can somebody else ask another question?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning.
Sir, yes, sir, please, I want to ask the discussion on the types of notice.
Oh, type of notice. Yes.
Yes,
okay. Okay, type of notice. I started with actual notice. Is that your question?
Yes, sir. Like from actual notice, you went to priority. We didn't talk about the remaining two.
Oh, okay. I think I also explained this one before. I did. I explained before, but let me go back again. The first one is actual notice, and I said that is when you have direct knowledge of existence of an equitable interest. I said that. That means you have direct information. You've been told, and you are aware of the fact that land is not free. But because you are richer than the person that created it, you decided to still go ahead, and then you still want your priority to take. I mean, you want your priority to still be counted. That will not be possible. That's what we're saying. Then the second one is constructive notice. Constructive notice is where you ought to have discovered the existence of an interest in a property by conducting a search, but you choose not to. Okay, you choose not to. This constructive notice is actually very common with a legal interest. For example, where I think I gave an example of a pastor. Your pastor, you believe so much in your pastor that the GO, and that the GO had the land to sell, and that GO just inform you, I'm selling this land to you because you are a good member of my church, and you instead of you to go and conduct a search, you believe the information given to you by that the GO that the land is good, unknown to you that the GO has created a legal mortgage, okay, without disclosing to you. But because you trusted your daddy GO, you went ahead, you bought the land, and then when you are about to settle down, the bank came there to chase you out. Now, what is the construction notice there? The construction notice is that the moment a legal interest is registered, just like I said from beginning, it constitutes notice to the whole world. Okay, now if you are taking time to conduct a search, you will have received the fact that the land wasn't free. But because you choose not to go and verify, you are deemed to have received constructive notice of that encumbrances. That is what we are saying. Okay, and it's common with legal interest, because for every legal interest, there's a documentation showing the fact that the land is not free. Okay, but if you choose not to conduct a search, and you went ahead to buy or to create another interest, and subsequently you now found out, you will be extolled because of the fact that you are deemed to have received constructive notice. Because if you had conducted a search, you will have discovered that the land is not free. That is what we call constructive notice. The third one is what we call imputed notice. Imputed notice. This is where, as a purchaser, you employ an agent, okay, or a solicitor. You are in London, you are in the US, and probably you now send your solicitor to go and buy a piece of land for you, okay? And then the agent actually received both the actual and constructive notice. He ought to have received both. I mean, he received actual. He knew that the land wasn't free. That's number one. And he also decided not to do any search, which means that he also received constructive notice. And he just informed you, oh, we have searched, oh, the land is free. There's no problem. And he did not do anything. He actually received notice that somebody bought, oh, but the person that bought, oh, I think is not in Nigeria, is late. And you decided to go and buy. Now, and you reported back to your principal, who's now the buyer. And that person is aired out, is representing you as your agent. The notice that they receive that the land is not free is now being imputed on you wherever you are. That is what we are saying. That's what we call imputed notice. It's common in property sales, especially where agents have done a lot of work. They have done a lot of work when they're about to pay, that suddenly they discover that the land is having an issue. I've done that before, where people are about to pay. In fact, the day they are about to pay, I just stumbled on encumbrances. I found out that the man actually created multiple mortgages on that particular piece of land. He did not reveal to us that he told us he created a mortgage and we are about to pay. Okay, what was the money? He owed a bank almost 50 million naira then. And then we want to buy the property for 70 million. So what we decided to do is that we are not going to give you this money. Let's go to the bank. We are going to pay your debt, and then we'll retrieve our documents so that we can pay you your balance. That's also contract of sale of land. Unfortunately, when we found out that we make sure that we did not go with him the same day. We went back to the bank, like we fixed a Monday to go. So we decided to go on Friday. We discovered that yes, even if we paid that money, there's another loan that has been restructured for consolidation of mortgages. There's another loan he used the same property to borrow, which is over 100 million naira. So we just back out, we did not buy. That is what I'm saying. Now, let's assume that we received that information, and I received that information, and I decided to keep quiet. And then we pay, and then we stumble on the second mortgage. If I'm being sent by a client, that may have received, that my client, the information I got that I failed to disclose is imputed on him as if he has received that notice. That is what we call imputed notice. So that's the type of notice. I think you get it clear now. Is it better now?
Sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Any other question?
Good morning.
Yes. Good morning.
I want to ask you a question, sir. What if you're a lawyer to the person selling the land, and you've seen a duty of the sale of land is business, and you don't have to purchase the land for 50 million, in someone else that wants to buy the same land for 100 or 150 million, and you've entered the contract of sale of land. So
can you please repeat your question, because your line is breaking? Can you repeat your question? I couldn't hear you. Yes.
Okay. What's about with this? Because if, for instance, you're a lawyer to someone that wants to sell a land, and you've seen someone purchase the same land for 50 million, and another wants to purchase it for 100 or 150 million, and this is business. What are contract of sale of land? First person. What are with the remedies or that can do to not sell to the first person, but rather sell to the second person, the highest bidder.
I didn't get your line was breaking, but if I pick what you are saying, listen to me if that's what you said. You are a lawyer to a seller and you want to do business. The first one was that you find the first buyer who is ready to pay 50 million naira and you sign a contract of sale of land with that person. And then you find another person that want to buy the same land for 150. And because it's business, you decided now to sell to the second buyer. Is that your question? Is that what you said?
Yes, but I said what can be done so that you not be able
There's nothing that can be done. You take. There's nothing. There's an equitable interest has passed already. That's what we are saying. That's what we call exit contract. Equitable interest has passed to the first person you sold to. Do you understand? As long as you sign a contract of sale of land, equitable interest has passed, and you can no longer rescind that contract. So, reason why the man will go to court against you, the first buyer will go to court against you. Okay. And not only by claiming damages against you, but by suing for specific performance to compel you not to sell. That's what we are saying. The moment you create a contract of sale of land for first person, equitable interest has passed to him. Okay? If you sold to the second person, who is aware of the fact that you sold, and because you now collected 150, and that man is also a rich man, he went and perfected his document and obtained a legal interest. His interest is not going to take priority because he's not a bona fide purchaser for value without notice of the earlier equity. That's what we have been saying. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. Did you understand? And that is exactly what is happening in Ogunbambi against Aboaba. So you cannot claim to say you are doing business. That's not a business. The moment you want to rescind that contract, it becomes a breach of contract. Okay? And the consequence is very simple. The other man, the property has passed. The moment you collected money from somebody, no matter how little, the property has passed, the title has passed to him. But the kind of interest that passes to him, it has to be what? Equitable interest. The only problem there is that, assuming the man, you agreed to sell the land to the man for 100 million naira, and the man pay you 50 million, leaving the balance of another 50 million. And then the time within which to pay is in default. And then that your agreement says, if it's in default, you can sell to a third party. Okay, that is when you are exonerated. But the moment you have sold and you have collected money and the man is still within the period when he's supposed to pay balance, he has acquired equitable interest in respect of that particular property. Your decision to sell to higher bidder is a breach of contract, and there's no way you can sustain it in court of law. That's what we're saying. Okay, I don't know whether that's your question. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay. Another question?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, my question is: you said that if there is a competing legal and equitable interest, and the legal interest is guilty of, and the person who owns the legal interest is guilty of gross negligence, fraud, or gross negligence or fraud, the equitable interest will take precedence over the legal interest.
Well, I've said that instances where equitable interest.
Yes, I'm coming to the question, sir. What if we have like four legal interests, and the first in time was guilty of fraud or gross negligence? Will you go back? Will you go to the fourth line, or will go to the second line? Do you understand what I'm saying?
You and this, you're asking me past question. You are the same person that raised this question last time. Are you not the one?
Yes, but this was not the question. I was the one, sir.
It's the past question. I know you very well. I heard you. I didn't know you, but I hear your voice, and I know you are the same question you asked me, trying for me to answer that question for you. With this understanding you now have today, can't you go back to that same question? Go and read the case of Oliver and Hilton. Go and read Rice and Rice. You'll be able to answer that question. And then go and read this case of fire insurance against WIP. Okay? Fire insurance company against WIP. And then Oliver Hilton, you answer the question. You know, when you have multiple legal interests, if one is postponed and you also have another legal interest, then on the order of priority, it will continue that way, except where other people are so guilty of the same thing. If you are not guilty of fraud, equitable interest will not supersede them. Okay? Notwithstanding the fact that number one is knockoff. If the second one is there and he also a bona fide purchaser of value, or he created that interest without notice of any knowledge, no knowledge, whether actual, constructive, or of the fact that an interest has been created. But let me tell you the truth. Constructive notice will always catch up with almost all of them that created a legal interest. Because there's no way you want to create a multiple legal interest that you will not discover the first legal interest created. It's not like an equitable interest. Let me give an example. How do you know that a legal interest has been created over a property? It's registration. You are going to do it second semester. The topic called registration. Now, it's what we call registration. If a piece of land is bought today by Mr. Ayo or Mr. Ade, and he obtained a CFO from Lagos State government, and it's going to be registered. What they will put in that document they give back to you is that by CFO has been granted to Mr. Ayo, and the same is registered as number 2 in volume 2 2024. They will give you the number. That's the way they do it. Now, is there on your record? It's like a mirror. Registration is like a mirror. Registration is like a mirror. Okay. So if you know what is a mirror, it's like a mirror. You are looking at yourself inside a mirror. Okay, that is what they call registration. So that's number 1. Now, for every interest registered against that particular piece of land, you will show it. So let the man now create. I've obtained CFO now, and it's registered. Now, subsequently, I took mortgage, and I created a legal mortgage. That legal mortgage will be registered against that land. So when you go to land registry, you are going to see there that after you obtain CFO, somebody has also created a legal interest, a legal mortgage. Okay? So these are things I'm talking about. For every legal interest, it's going to stand against that particular property. The more you search at the land registry, the more you see there that it has been registered. That's what I'm trying to let you know. Okay? So there's nothing like creating a multiple legal mortgage or creating a legal interest without you knowing or aware of the fact that an interest has been created. Okay? So that is what I can say for now. Okay? Any other question?
Please, I have a question.
Yes.
So, looking at the aspect of notice, you said, Mommy, Kai, you said the constructive notice or imputed notice, like via the lawyer as the representative of the seller, would be imputed on the seller. So, can the seller push the lawyer to the front and say, okay, he's the one, no, you push, you carry him, I asked him to represent me and he went to go and do wogo, or can he or ideally should he separately bring an action against the lawyer for breach of trust or something?
You are aware. Have you heard about agency before? Didn't you do agency and principal?
Yes, we did. I was just wondering if there might be an exception.
Yes, that could be an exception. If you believe that the man deliberately commits fraud, you can go against him, but not against the priority because you held him out. The moment you ask somebody to represent you, and that person is your representative, and you agree that it's going to bind you, some of them will even give them power of attorney to represent you. So when we are talking about this one, you can go after your agent later, but not against the priority. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, another one.
Yes, sir. Please, I have a question.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Please, you explained something earlier, but I wasn't hearing you clearly. You said that there are different types of legal interest. One that would reduce the holder's rights to I don't understand what you meant there. What is the implication of that type of legal interest that would do?
What is what?
I didn't hear you when you explained the relevance of the type of legal interest that would extinguish the holder's right to reversion.
Oh, Jesus Christ. If people are not listening at all. Okay. What I was saying is this. You have many interests, legal interests. And I explained to you. Number 1, you can have mortgage, legal mortgage. Do you understand what is mortgage?
Yes, sir.
You can have a legal mortgage. Legal mortgage does not extinguish the right of the owner. I borrow money and I use my property as a collateral. It doesn't mean that I've sold my property to the bank. I'm still the owner. What I've passed to the bank is what they call proprietary interest. Are you there now? Do you understand that?
Yes,
did you understand that? Good. Now, the same me, it's my house. I created a lease. I asked somebody to come and stay. If somebody wants to use it for business, and he wants to use the property for 20 years, and I created a lease. Okay? When I created that lease for another 20 years, and then we registered that lease, I've also created a legal lease. Okay? Now, and I said, a legal lease does not also extinguish the right of the owner. There's what we call right of reversion. A lease, if I give you my land to use for 20 years, the land will return back to me after 20 years. That's what they call reversion. Did you understand that now?
Yes, sir.
Now, the third one is assignment. Assignment is where I have a CFO, for example, and I want to sell my land to you. Let me use the one sell now. And I want to sell the land to you. And you buy. Once you buy my land and I collect money, it has extinguished my right over that land. I don't have anything again. So it's quite different from other one I just gave to you. The other example I gave to you, it doesn't extinguish any right. It's still my property. But the moment I assign my interest totally to a third party, and that other party created a legal assignment, that is the end of my right over that particular property. Do you understand now?
Yes, I understand. What I was actually asking is the type of legal interest that would extinguish the owner's right to reversion. Does that one take any kind of priority over the other types of legal interest?
What is the meaning of what you are saying? Legal interest that will create the right of reversion. What is the meaning of that? Maybe you don't understand what I'm saying. The only place I mentioned reversionary interest is a lease. Please listen to me. I mentioned a lease. What is a lease? A lease is the only place I mentioned reversionary interest. A lease is where I gave you my property to use. I'm the owner of my property. And I say, okay, use this property. You are interested. I did not want to sell to you, but I want to give you a lease. A lease is where I grant you the use of my land for numbers of years. Okay? And I say, okay, and you say you want to use my property for 30 years to do business. And I say, okay, let's create a legal lease. And then I said to you, when a lease is more than 3 years, it must be registered. So we now register that lease. What we have created is what we call a legal lease. Okay? And the fact that we created a legal lease means that after 30 years, the land returned back to me. That's what they call reversionary interest. So I've created a legal lease, and then when your 30 years expire, I collect my property back from you. That is what a legal lease. It doesn't extinguish my right over that particular piece of land, except I did not understand what you are saying. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. Do you understand?
I understand now, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
Yes, I have a question. Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
So in an instance where, going from the example you gave, that I left my documents to my property laying around, and someone goes ahead to take that document to collect a mortgage, and I'm totally unaware of this transaction. Now, I go on again to get an equitable interest, like I sell the land to my guy without like creating any formal documents. Now, the person that took my documents is unable to pay the mortgage, and then the bank tries to collect my land. Now, in that instance, can I argue against the bank that the transaction is null and void because the transaction was built on fraud, or the legal interest still comes before my equitable interest?
That's what we are saying now. That's what we say now. If a legal interest was created by fraud, if it's created by fraud, yes, that legal interest will be postponed in favor of an equitable interest. That's exactly what we said now. Do you understand? If it's created by fraud, you are not aware of the transaction, but you are also not in connivance, okay? Because you know that you connive with somebody to go and dupe a bank, and then you now decided to run away and say you are not aware. That's not what I say, because I've seen cases like that, where a boy wants to travel abroad, and he purportedly stole a document of his father to go and borrow money from the bank. And the bank, when the boy traveled, after the boy had traveled, the bank came to visit and they want to take the property. And the father was like, I'm not aware, it's my property. So in such instance, if you are not aware, you don't have knowledge of it, but the question remains that people are asking, how does he have access to it? You don't need to be negligent about your document. That's number one. Because if you are negligent about your documents and somebody steal it, and it creates an interest against you, that could be a problem. So if you are not liable, if you are not guilty of negligence, yes, you can clear yourself. And then whatever interest you set aside, the first thing you have to do, because an interest has been created in the first instance, the only remedy for you to go and set aside that transaction first, and then for you to be able to now collect your document back. So yes, it can be postponed. It can be postponed if you can establish the fact that it was a fraud, and you're also not guilty of what they call connivance, okay, or conspiracy, as the case may be. Do you understand now? Do you understand?
Sir, I still have a question. When you mean postponed, do you mean? Yes, sir. I get what you just said, but I still have a question. When you mean the interest of the bank is postponed as a result of the fraud transaction, postponed there, is it like postponed indefinitely, or when the because now what would be the remedy for the bank?
Postpone, when they say it's postponed, it's talking about the fact that the equitable interest, it depends on what you created. What are the competing interests? What are the competing interests? For example, let's say you have created an equitable mortgage with the same property, and somebody needs the document to go and create a legal mortgage. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, and then you are able to establish the fact that the equitable mortgage, you take priority over equitable mortgage because the legal mortgage was fraudulently created. That's what I'm saying. If it can be established in court that yes, if a legal mortgage was fraudulently created, then equitable mortgagee would take priority over the one that was fraudulently created. That's what I'm saying. That's number one. Number two is that if this is postponed, it means that priority will not be based on the legal interest that was first created, but rather it will be based on the equity that was properly created. That was what I meant by postpone. Postpone is only you have competing interest. So the other one will be suspended pending the time that this other one will be settled. Now, let me also say you certain thing about this competing interest. Competing interest doesn't mean that the other party is going to lose totally. He's talking about priority, about payment, especially when it's related to issue of where individual can actually benefit from the land. For example, let me give an example. Where there are multiple mortgages, you borrow money from Bank A, Bank B, Bank C, and then one of them is a legal mortgage. Okay? We said that legal mortgage you take priority over the subsequent equity. But now you'll be able to establish the fact that the legal mortgage was created out of fraud. So if the money they borrow from all the banks, from Bank A is 20 million, Bank B 20 million, the one with legal interest 20 million, that's 60 million. But the entire land, the worth of that particular piece of land is just 60 million or 70 million. What we are saying is that the first person that take priority will take his own money first if the land is sold. The second person will take his own money. Whatever remain is what the third person will take. And if it doesn't remain at all, that means that interest is it's not catered for. He cannot go after the man that created mortgage and do for him and collect his money from him. That's what we are saying. Do you understand now?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, another question?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I need a little bit of clarification on the issue of competing legal interests. And you mentioned the general rule of qui prior est tempora per jury, that EU first time is stronger in law. So, and you said an exception is notice. So I don't think I understand the issue of notice, sir. I don't know if you can reiterate.
All this one that we're talking about notice that I explained. So you don't understand the three notices that I explained? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, sir. I think because of the network, I got logged out. So I'm
talking about this notice for how many days since I started this my class. Notice is, I said to you that if you receive notice of the fact that an equitable interest has been created, you knew that a land had been sold to Mr. A, you are aware. Somebody told you that, oh, this land, has it been sold? It happened in practice. People sold land and then, because you go to the seller and say, how much did you sell the land to that person? And they say, I sold it to him for 100 million. I can pay you 150 million. Return his money. And then the man decided to return Mr. A's money. Mr. A now said, I'm not going to collect my money because an equitable interest has been created. Do you understand? So Mr. B or Mr. C is not a bona fide purchaser for value because he has received notice. He paid more money and he has perfected the document by going to land registry to register it. He now acquire a legal interest. But the first person that bought still have an equitable interest. But he take priority, that's what we're saying. Mr. C, who now bought and he received notice, aware of the fact that interest have been created earlier in respect of the same property. Is not a bona fide purchaser for value without notice of the earlier equity. That's what we're saying. So there are instances where interest will have been created over a property, and you are aware, you have the information that has been created. Nevertheless, you went ahead to still go and create your own. You have received notice. That's what we're saying. And we said we have different type of notices. There's actual notice, the one that they told you directly, and you also are aware. We also talk about constructive notice, where you ought to have conducted a search, and you will have discovered the fact that the land is not free, and you still went ahead to buy. And I also talk about imputed notice, when you send your agent to go and inspect a particular property, and the agent found out that the land is not free, but he did not disclose to you. And then you went ahead to pay, only for you to discover that there was an encumbrances on that land. It's not free. Then that notice is imputed on you. So when we are talking about notice, we are talking about the fact that you are aware, you knew about the existence of an interest in the property, but you still went ahead to put your head. That's what we are talking about. I don't know whether you understand now. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Well, I'll stop here today. We'll see next week. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.